We've had this Dualit classic toaster for many a year, but it hasn't been working very well recently. I'll demonstrate the problem. 3 slices of bread, pop them in, set it to toast all slices, set it for 2 minutes, and let's see the result. They look fine this side. Turn them over though, and the one on the left has not been toasted at all. The bread has just not been heated up. So it looks as though the end element has failed. The other problem I have with this machine is if I now put in another 3 pieces of bread while the machine is still warm and repeat exactly that process, they come out considerably more done. There's no sensing inside the machine to sense the temperature. It's just a crude timer. But the one on the end still hasn't been done on the left-hand side. So it's time to replace at least that one element. In fact, I bought 4 new elements from Dualit. Together with postage, they cost me about £40. I bought 2 pairs, 2 end elements, which are marked, and 2 centre elements. It does come with some instructions, which you can follow if you're reasonably competent at this sort of thing. It's pretty clear how to do it. In any case, the machine is a very simple machine. So the first thing is to take the plug out, remove the crumb tray, tip it upside down. Next job is to remove the 4 rubber feet, and then the 2 end screws, and you can remove the base plate. And you can see here that this is probably 2001 manufacture, so we've had this machine for at least 20 years. I strongly advise you to take a picture of the wiring before you start to undo anything. It looks pretty simple, but once you've got a pile of bits and pieces, it's not always possible to remember exactly how they go. The next job is to slacken off the 2 nuts that hold the retaining plate. You don't have to take them all the way off, just loosen them. And then the retaining plate can be pushed to one side, and that will allow the elements to come off. But first you have to take the nuts off that hold the 2 wires, the red and blue wire. I found that 4BA spanners were just about the right size. It is a little bit awkward getting into here. To undo these nuts. So having undone them, you can slide off the wires and their tags and tuck them out of the way. This allows you then to lift up the whole set of elements. This makes it much easier to get to the screw heads and the nuts and to remove the elements that you want to replace. I decided to replace all the elements, so it's just a case of working along one by one, lifting them out. The instructions do advise you to bend the brass tabs to one side when you take the elements out to avoid scraping the brass connecting bar against the wires on the elements. You can see how grotty these old elements are. You can test them. Here are the new elements. The end ones have a slightly lower resistance of about 110 ohms. They're a bit more powerful because they're at the end. The ones in the middle are about 140 ohms. And of course you can test the old elements as well. This is the one that's failed, it's open circuit. And this is the other end one, which is 110 ohms. So it's still okay, but I decided to replace them all, in fact. You'll find that the little screws have 2 different lengths. The longer ones are to hold the red and blue wires at the end. You'll also find that the nuts are slightly different thicknesses, but I couldn't quite work out why. So, fitting the new elements is just a reversal of the process. Just working along one by one. You can in fact pull the elements slightly to one side so that when you put in the next one you're not scraping the brass connecting bars against the wires of the new element. The new elements are in fact protected by a tough plastic layer, but even so it pays to be a bit cautious when you've paid about 10 quid for each of these. So we just then work along one by one. It's a bit of a fiddly job, but eventually you've got all the elements in, but you can push them down then in order to fix the two wires at the end. The next job is to move that retaining plate into the slots on the elements to hold them in position and to tighten up those two nuts. And then it's a case of putting back the base plate, 2 screws at the end and the 4 rubber feet. So let's see if our handiwork has fixed this toaster. Same test as before. Those are all nicely done. We turn them over. The one at the end is actually toasted, but only very lightly. But certainly that element is now working. And if I do a subsequent test with the machine still warm, what I find is that, there we are, the toast has done much more than it did before, which is a bit of a fault with the machine. So you really need to reduce the time for the second lot of toast that you do. But at least it's done on all the sides now. So that's how to refurbish your classic toaster, and it's probably good now for another 20 years. I hope this has been useful to you. Thanks for watching.